Country Spotlight. I'm your host, Margie Pizarro. We have dedicated this show to tying faces to the ribbon. Of course, October is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and it's a time that we take part to remember those people who are actually struggling with the disease. We actually memorialize and honor those people who have lost their battle. I have just been so fortunate and privileged to meet Cherise Cox, and Cherise Cox is actually in the throes of her disease as we speak. She is a single mother. She has a number of children. Her first diagnosis was at the age of 20, and she made that battle successful in 2008, only to find in 2014 that her cancer has returned. In addition to Cherise Cox, we also have a really, really good friend of mine, Kathleen Parker Cornley, and I will admit that I did not realize that you were a survivor and that you actually had experience with the disease. So I want to begin first by welcoming both of you to Low Country Spotlight and thanking you so much for coming on to share your story.
Thank you.
Now, Cherise, and this might be a little difficult to get through when we think about your story and the fact that in 2008, at the age of 20-something?
It was like 28.
At the age of 20-something, you actually, your doctor discovered a lump. You were pregnant at the time.
Yes.
And to be diagnosed with cancer, you know, that 6-letter word that has such horrible implications. Tell us about what was going through your mind at the time of your diagnosis.
Well, like the nurse walked in with a red rose. I'll never forget it, and she gave it to me. Told me to get dressed and go in another room. And when the doctor came in and he told me, he said, "Are you familiar with breast cancer?" I was like, "No, not really." He was like, "Well, we found cancer in your breast," and it hit me like me, not me.
Right.
You know, I've heard about it, you know, but not me. I can't have breast cancer. I have kids. I can't die. You know, that was my first initial thought about it when I saw.
Now, were you doing self-examinations? Because we hear so much about, you know, the importance of self-examinations, even at an early age. Was that something you were doing?
No, at 17, I had a lump in my breast, but it was non-benign. So they would teach me how to do it as I grew up and through the years, but you know, being young, you just don't think those type of things happen to you. So
I'm not getting cancer.
So I'm like, I'm not checking no breast for what? I'm not getting cancer.
Wow.
So I was in that mind frame until it actually hit me.
Yeah. Now that was your initial diagnosis. Kathleen, tell us a little bit about when you actually discovered your disease, whether it was discovered through routine mammography, through a self-exam, through a doctor's visit.
Mine was through a mammogram, a routine scheduled mammogram, and I was really bad because I hadn't been to the doctor in 3 years, because we as women take care of our families first and we put ourselves on the back burner, and I think that's what Teresa and I both did.
Right.
I was fortunate, they caught it early. I did have 2 different kinds of breast cancer. I went through chemotherapy, a double mastectomy. I did not have to have any radiation, and I'm on a 10-year tamoxifen. I have to take tamoxifen daily for 10 years.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I know that, Cherise, after you had your diagnosis and treatment and did all the right things in 2008, your disease reappeared in 2014. And Kathleen, you mentioned this tamoxifen. Tell us about.
It is my breast cancer was estrogen receptive positive, and so they put you on tamoxifen to try to block the cancer cells from receiving estrogen. And but the downfall is it puts you into early menopause.
So, the difference between your situation and Cerise's situation is at the age of 20-something, after she had done her treatment, if she had gotten on this regimen,
she would have been put into menopause, which is why a lot of women, and there are a lot of side effects with it, so a lot of women don't want to take it. But they say that's one of the most beneficial things you can do. And the side effects do diminish as time goes by. Initially, you have, you know, a lot of not fun side effects, but it gets better. And you know, but I have several friends now that had recently had breast cancer and will not take it.
Wow. And that's what happened in your situation. I'm not even sure if you even knew to ask for it, or if you would even made that offer for that drug.
I was young and uneducated. I wasn't given, like, you know, this is what we need to do. Tamoxifen is what we need to do after everything was done. I was never given that chance, that option. I was told about it, but not knowing that this is something that I needed to do. I was just unaware and uneducated about it. No one sat down and really told me that this is something I needed to do.
Right.
So unfortunately, I didn't take it, but I didn't know, because I felt like my doctor said, this is something that you need to do for the next 5 years, because we need to stop this cancer from coming back ever. But I was never given that chance.
Right, and so in 2008, you did all the right things, and then 2014, lo and behold, your cancer returns. Tell us a little bit about the most recent diagnosis.
Well, February the 14th on Valentine's Day, I couldn't move. I was, for the last year before I even went back to the hospital, I was going to hitting every emergency room, letting people know, like, I can't move. I'm in bed, like, almost like I'm paralyzed. I can't move. I need help. Something's wrong with my back. And a lot of doctors told me it was my gallbladder, and I got that removed. And I still had the problems. And I just, on February the 14th, 2014, I just went in and told the doctor, listen, something's wrong.
Right.
I can't move out bed. I'm in pain. Like, I'm not moving unless you tell me what's wrong with me. Find out what's wrong with me. And she did an MRI, and she came back and told me that my cancer came back in my spine and some other places, but I got tested and it just was my spine.
Wow. A couple of things that you mentioned were just the fact that you didn't have the knowledge at the end of 2008 after you had finished your treatment.
No,
you just
ma'am.
didn't know. You felt like you were uneducated.
Yes,
and then even after 2014, when you're experiencing these pain, going to the doctor and the doctor telling you, oh, it's this, oh, it's that, oh, it's the other, but not really knowing what it was.
Not knowing.
Kathleen, talk to us about the importance of advocating for yourself.
Absolutely. I was just thinking the same thing. I think, again, particularly women, we trust doctors and we trust that they know more than we do, but we know our bodies better. And I think we know, I just had a friend diagnosed with ovarian cancer, as well as my sister was just diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And both of them really had to go to bat with their doctors. One of them, it took them 7 months to get diagnosed, going back to the doctor repeatedly and, you know, telling them symptoms. And finally, she got a diagnosis, but it was after 7 months of going back and back and back. So I think sometimes we need to be pushy, you know, and sometimes we need to be demanding. And it's not what we are taught as females growing up, to be pushing and demanding, but we need to develop that.
Exactly, because in the end, it could actually end up saving your own life.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yes.
You can't just think that the doctor's always right.
You have to ask questions, do your own research. And I think what does it say about the squeaky wheel?
Gets
the
the
one
grease,
that
yeah.
gets the grease.
Yeah,
So we need to be
absolutely.
mindful of that.
Yes.
We are out of time for this segment of the show.
Okay.
And I just wanted to thank you both so much for coming on and sharing your
you're
story.
welcome.
But this is not the end, because we do have some other things that we want to discuss. Don't go anywhere. We have more Low Country Spotlight coming up on our next show. Again, send us information. We want to know what's going on with you. Thanks.